Welcome to the Conquer Your Battlefield podcast, where we come together to discuss some of the more significant struggles and metaphorical battlefields that we've faced along our journeys and share some insight on how we've conquered them. I'm JD McGibney, and today I'll be talking with an international guitar master, a modern virtuoso who has perfected the 8-finger tapping technique, has taught at numerous prestigious music schools across Italy, taught across multiple platforms, and given various lectures on theory and technique, performed all over the world with pop artists, chamber orchestras, various bands, and also as a solo artist. Today, I'm chatting with the endlessly talented, humble, and wonderful Daniele Gottardo. How you doing today, Daniela?
Hi, Zedi. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with your podcast, and I'm doing great today, and I'm very excited.
Oh, well, thank you very much for being here.
And thank you for the very sweet introduction.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for being such an amazing human being.
We are a work in progress, right?
You know what? I agree with that. Always towards perfection. Today, we are going to be talking about Expatriate Depression or Expat Depression. Expat Depression is a type of depression specifically found in those who move to a new country. It is associated with higher feelings of anxiety, stress, sadness, and a unique sense of isolation being removed from one's culture. Pre the COVID-19 pandemic, expat depression among immigrants was a difficult enough issue with the regulations put in place by national governments, as well as the initial culture shock of living in a different country. With the added element of the global lockdowns and restricted international travel, the senses of sadness, anxiety, stress, and isolation among expatriates has increased. Daniela, we chatted previously prior to this conversation, and you mentioned that you had traveled back and forth between Italy and the United States regularly for a few years before officially moving here. How has the transition from living in Italy to the United States affected you? And was there an issue before you officially moved here when you were in that time period of just moving back and forth every few months?
Okay, it's a good question. Yes, in the beginning, for a few years, like you said, I was doing back and forth, and I was staying for 3 months each time, the maximum available if you don't have a visa or a green card. During this short amount of time, the feelings was probably more about excitement because something new. We are talking also pre-pandemic era, okay? And the main feeling was excitement, of course, learning about a new culture, the way Americans live, and dealing with a new language. As you can hear, my English is still a big work in progress, but there was a little bit of a shock of a new culture, but mostly excitement, I need to say.
That makes sense, because it's like if you're only here for a short period of time, so in your case 3 months, there's not a lot of time. It's basically long enough for you to go around and try new things, but you still have the sensation and the knowledge that at the end of 3 months you're going to go back to where you have that familiarity. What was it like when you officially moved here, like completely, and how long did it take for you to start feeling that sense of expatriate depression set in?
When I moved here, it was after a long time on doing back and forth. Plus, with my girlfriend at the time that you interview also, Gretchen, we decided to get married.
Mazel tov, by the way.
What?
Mazel tov, by the way. Congratulations, even though I'm a couple years late.
After after several years of being together. And then, replying to your answer, one aspect of you were talking about the anxiety aspect of these things, and definitely the process of the green card, the process of having a legal of being a legal resident was for me a little bit stressful because Also, if we didn't have any problem at all, because we were able very easily to demonstrate that we were a real couple, right? Otherwise, you can get problem.
Yeah.
Then we didn't have problem, but still, it was the feeling that you can have is that you are doing something bad,
Mm.
like if you are clandestine. How you can say in English?
They have that. You have that feeling of just you feel guilty because people are just so closely looking at you and analyzing what it is that you're doing. You're like, oh, maybe I am doing something wrong, but like in
Yeah,
your case, you literally
exactly.
were not doing anything wrong.
Yeah, yeah. But you start to have a feeling that also when also traveling, when you arrive to the airport, you feel like you are not a criminal, but that, like you said, that you are doing something wrong, and this is not very helpful, right?
No.
To gain a confidence in a new country. Then there was this. Now I'm in the process of doing a renewal of the green card,
Hmm.
but things are very slow. They're taking forever. In fact, I have an extension of my permanent, of my conditional green card. The first is 2 years, and then you get the 10 years one.
Gotcha.
Anyway, there was this one that was a little bit stressful because until the last minute you don't know if I can be legally here, or I need to go back in Italy in my case. That it was pretty is pretty stressful, and also the aspect of the language. As I can hear, I'm trying to learn, but I'm really obsessed in studying music. I'm studying this stuff all day long when I have time. And with English, I'm a little bit slow, and then there is a little bit of sometimes I can think, oh my god, learning a language a little bit late, not when I was a kid. It will take forever to don't make too many errors, you know, to speak decently, and that is an aspect that doesn't help your self-esteem and things like that.
Yeah, I can totally understand, but I think it's important to point out that understanding music is almost like understanding a language in general. So if you think about it, uh, you speak at least three languages that I know of. So you speak Italian
Mm,
because that's your natural language. You
yeah,
speak English, and then you speak music. And just listening to your the music that you write, the music that you've played, you know, listing off all of your credentials, you're very fluent in music, and I'm assuming you're fluent in Italian. So I mean, you definitely are achieving some wonderful things that people only dream of. I mean, there's so many people around the world who barely speak one language because they just don't apply themselves. But like I totally get where you're coming from when you say that being in a place in some place new that's so drastically different than what you're used to, and having the difficulty of just communicating. You have an idea, you have a whole list of ideas, and trying to get all that out, and having difficulties and stumbling over your words. I totally get that sense of uh you know feeling like bashful.
yeah, yeah. Also because I think that words are very powerful, and then I try to measure well what I'm saying, you know, because the risk to hurt somebody is very easy. Also, if you don't want, accidentally, you can say something without thinking. You can hurt somebody's feelings.
Mm.
It's very easy. Happen every day to everybody. I can see, and then sometimes find the right words can be frustrating because maybe I have in Italy, but then the translation doesn't work, and then
Mm.
I think in English, but sometimes for some specific things, I think I still think in Italian. Then it can be frustrating, yes. But for the other hands, when I talk with Italians, I often think in English because
Interesting.
the cool things about I really love American language,
Mm.
the English, and I like less how it it sounds. I really like about the English American language how with few words you can express something very clearly. When in Europe, in Italy, often we have a lot of words to express one concept. This is also true in music.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a, for instance, one of my favorite harmony book is about an Austrian composer Arnold Schoenberg,
Hmm.
and he takes pages to express one concept that in an American book is written two sentences. He talks 4 pages, and I like both approaches, but there is a very different type of thinking that I needed to get accustomed, and for the most, I like that, but it's still challenging to think to formulate your thought in a different way. Sometimes it's more effective, sometimes maybe less, but it's a form of enrichment, like you said, but still can create anxiety and stress.
Yeah, I think
Definitely.
that's a really interesting point that you're bringing up. The idea that when you speak, when you learn a language or when you speak in a language or you think in a language, each language is arranged completely different. So in order to speak a language and understand a language, you kind of have to understand the culture of the people who speak it. And then while you're learning that language, you get more inside the head of those people, of that culture. Just going off of what I know from like rudimentary Spanish from high school or like the year of German I took in college. Looking back now as an adult, it's just like, oh, each of these languages is arranged completely differently. And like, in order for me to understand those languages, I have to rearrange how I think of language. And the philosophy behind understanding a language, I think, is a really unique thing. And if you're born in like a location, you're taught, a language, I imagine, like, I think that language has a really big impact on how you develop as a person. So like if you're, uprooted, and like in your case, you literally moved to a completely different country, you have to learn this new language. Not only are you in a completely different place, are you cut off from like your family, but you're being forced to have a completely different mindset. And like there's a lot of reprogramming going on, like
Yeah.
we mentioned before, music itself is its own language. So like you're literally going back and forth between 3 different mindsets at any given time, between English, Italian, and music. So I mean, I can only imagine, like if when you feel stressed, like the amount of stress, because you have like 3 different levels going on. So I very much commend you for being as amazing and awesome as you are. So cheers.
Thank you, Agreed. We
You're
can
welcome.
also add that music is not just one language, but there is so many languages depending the style you play. And
That
if
too.
you play blues, to me is a specific language. If you play baroque improvisation, is another very specific language with very unique grammar, musical grammar. Then, what I like of music is the different type of things you can say, different type of style, and I try to manage different type of style, and then this add even more stress, but this is related to music because I try to figuring out a different type of style that I like to play, but this maybe is something else.
Yeah, well, I going like just listening to some of your music through on Spotify, your style is very much you, but you incorporate so many different styles into what it is that you write. And my next question to you,
I try.
and you succeed, sir. My next question to you is that when you were officially here and you were like, going through the process of, becoming a citizen, like living here and making this, the United States your permanent residence, was music, uh, did music help you deal with the anxieties and the stress of all of that?
Okay, cool question. Yeah, musically definitely helps. Uh, some people think that music can be also a cure, to me, it makes sense to cure you in
Mhm.
the way that make you feel better. But I have different feelings about music. To me, is the positive aspect of music is that you when you play you feel good. It's something meaningful, a lot of things. But also the other side that it can be like you like when you take a medicine that cure only the symptoms but doesn't
Mm,
cure the problem. You know what I'm trying to say?
I
Now I
do.
don't have the correct English words, but music is also like that. It is something that can helps you to procrastinate other
It's
aspects of your life that must be embraced. I think at least I think it's
so
like a drug. It's like a drug, you know. You feel good when you take it, but if it goes away, it depends how much you are addict, obviously.
gotcha.
But it can be a drug. It can be a drug to me.
Huh. So do you feel that you have that dynamic feeling with music where like it has helped you, but do you feel that you've had moments where you've used it to escape and avoid dealing with what you had to deal with?
I think yes. I think first it was easy to use music because I really like it, you know, and then it brings a lot of positive things, you know. But definitely a little bit. Mm, it helps. It helped me to maybe to deal with us with some feeling of inadequacy, you
Hmm.
know, that
Interesting.
wasn't very clear. Maybe it was more on my subconscious, but little by little they emerged.
What is it that you felt you were what did you feel inadequate about?
But we can talk about a more recent feeling of inadequacy that can be related with what we are talking today,
Hmm.
the expat depression, then feeling in a culture that feeling that when you move in a new country depends also how what is your personality. I tend to be very introverted, not
Mm.
very, no, very no, but a good amount of introversion. In the past, probably I was more introverted. Now I'm moving more to ambivert,
I
a little
gotcha.
bit of both, you know. Uh, but definitely feeling the difficulty to communicate fully. And then talking about more the recent years, because
Mm.
you asked me what's happened when you started to be here. Definitely it happens this one when I received my green card. We were talking about February of 2020,
Mm.
and then after a few months we started to COVID was there, and then I was feeling, oh, okay, my God, now I have a legal resident. I can finally feeling that I belong here clearly. But no, everything shuts down for a long time,
So you're
and then
basically
that,
locked inside for months.
yeah, exactly, and that obviously slowed down a lot the process of feeling that you are in a place where you belong, where you have the confidence that, especially during the pandemic, we also moved in a new place.
Oh.
And then the feeling that you go outside, I go for a walk, but where I am, you know, it's a feeling of like when you have an existential crisis that you start to question your identity, identity. I don't know if you have
Mhm.
experienced that type of stuff.
It's a constant feeling pretty much with me.
Great, great. You can start to doubt about also your existence or about several things. Then that things start to came out very naturally, you know, because you are really you don't know where you are for in a very practical way. You need to learn at the streets, you know, all this stuff. And for somebody that is introvert, it wasn't very easy during the last year. Now we are moving in a better and better place. For instance, this weekend, for instance, to do an example, I'm playing a couple of shows
Oh,
for the
cool.
first time in 1 year.
Oh, wow. Well, then
And
congratulations.
thank you. I'm really excited. And now we are moving in a different situation. And for sure that this helps a lot the sense of adequacy in the environment. Then
Hmm.
what goes together with the expat depression, especially during the COVID, is a sense of inadequacy because you need to learn where you are. Also, the way people drive here is very different from
Yes.
Italy. And then, okay, go to a grocery or go to play with somebody, and then you can see people that drives very different. That all these things was very difficult to how I can say
To process and get
to
used to.
to get used to during the first year at least and a
And,
half of pandemic,
and that's
especially
also,
because
I was gonna say, it sounds like you went through a lot all at once. Not only did you move here like officially, but then, the world shut down. And
yeah,
then you
yeah,
were
yeah,
pretty much
yeah,
stuck inside. And then you said in the middle of the pandemic, you guys moved to a completely different home, basically. So you're like, oh, this is my
yeah,
home. Oh wait, no, I have to go to a new home. So like,
yeah, in
not
another
only,
country,
yeah, like
yeah,
not,
yeah, yeah.
and then if I remember correctly, once you get your green card, you're not allowed to leave for a year. Is that correct?
No, it is when you are waiting for your green card.
Ah, that's what it is.
And
So,
fortunately it was kind of quick.
oh well, that's
Was
that's
kind
good.
of quick. I needed to wait close to 6 months,
Okay, I mean,
not
relatively
1 year.
speaking,
And
that's
then,
that's quick for the United States government.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know for this area, United States are a little bit Italian. Take all the time they need without rushing.
We'll get there.
Uh, yeah, but anyway, yeah, it was all these together. And then in the top, if you want to know, on the top of this, there was something else very heavy. The the release of my new album, to
Mm.
finish an album that
Oof,
took an incredible amount of mental energies,
I can imagine.
and then it need to I need to release this a couple of years ago, but obviously moving a new country, the production was in Italy, moving a new country, the pandemic, my morale was really low, and then I wasn't very full of self-doubts also about releasing new music,
Hmm.
and that was really painful to have this stuff in the top of that, because for me music is my main expression, form of
Yeah,
expression, and not being able to be, and the problem was not being able to be expressed in words for practical reason, and also in music,
yeah, because
you know
your music is mainly instrumental, unless you've like worked with like
yeah,
somebody else. So
instrumental 100%.
yeah, so I totally relate to the whole, you know, the added stress of putting out music. So you definitely have gone through a lot, in the past like 3 years at this point. How is
Mm.
Now that things are starting to open up a little bit with like the world, and like travel restrictions have definitely lightened a lot, like there's vaccines, people are a lot more willing to like go out and do things. You said you have your first show in like a year. How do you feel
Yeah,
right now with everything?
I feel better because uh, definitely it's more easy to go out to hang out with people, to feeling that you are part of the culture and not that you are an alien, you know,
Yeah.
in some place that you feel at home. A part of me always feel well, I need to say that otherwise I wasn't going to move in another country.
Yeah.
But there is another part of you that feels lost. Then is always, I always needed and need to balance these two aspects that that can be against each other sometimes, different feelings that contradict each other. Anyway, now I feel better. Definitely, I'm also close to the release of the album that will help me to feel this weight, because it has become a weight,
Yeah, I can imagine. You're just kind of like dragging it. You're like, all right, it's got to
Yeah,
go.
yeah. But I want to release right, and then I don't want to rush. Anyway, yeah, feeling better about things opening up, being able to play music, and sometimes my music, especially because during the first year of the lockdown, I was playing.
Hmm.
I never stopped playing, but I didn't practice my music for a lot of time.
Oh, wow.
And then it really creates a sense of discomfort because but then more recently I started to do some live stream,
Oh, cool.
um, and then I was able to reconnect with some of my material, and I reconnect with myself of several years ago, depending when I wrote the music. Then that really is really helpful. And yeah, I have more motivation to be take action, to do stuff when during the first part of the pandemic, putting all these things together really, I really feel difficult to do stuff.
Do you feel that the upcoming performances that are going to be happening soon, do you feel that they are helping to alleviate a lot of the stress because you're actually able to be uh, in your element, so to speak? You're able to do what it is that you're so passionate about, and you're able to connect with people in person through music again.
Yeah, definitely. And also it gave a meaning, to the music I play. My pieces are not very easy to perform,
I I can totally guess that just
Then
listening and watching you.
sometimes I play. Also, the new album is even worse from this point of view. It's really unplayable. A lot of stuff for the dynamics, especially. Anyway, and then sometimes I practice about why I needed to write. Why life is already complicated. Why I need to make my life even more complicated. And then in the end of the day, I know that is what I like to do, what make me excited, to what gave to me meaning. But definitely this show can help because I go to practice my piece and say, okay, it makes sense because I have a show.
I
And
think
then
I think it's something that's really fantastic about musicians in general, not just guitar players, but like anyone any musician. The idea that like when you're sitting down to compose, you're anytime you write something new, a lot of times you're trying to like push yourself, to the next level, whether it's through
yeah,
technicality, whether it's through like just opening up and being more vulnerable through your art. I think philosophically speaking, that aspect of music is really beautiful, and it's really empowering because it encourages us as human beings to just go beyond our comfort level, not in this controlled environment, and then apply that to our everyday life. So I want to commend you for it sounds like you just constantly are trying to push yourself to be better and better at your craft, and I think that shows because you're brave enough to literally move from the country you grew up in and move to like literally the other side of the planet. So I think you're a very uh you're a very good role model to people who are like listening, people who are watching, people who are already fans of you. You're a very good icon for people to look up to.
yeah, very sweet. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And what I want to say, Yeah, you were talking about push yourself. This is also comes also from a sense. It's like a sense of compensation. You need to. I don't know if I'm using the correct terms. Compensare, compensazione.
Uh,
Com- to
to compensate?
compensate.
Yeah.
Yeah, to compensate other aspects of your psychology that maybe can be related to inadequacy. And
Mm.
then, but a lot of this I know is a very common feeling in musicians, the sense of being inadequate, and then they push and they become very good in what they do. Not only music is very common for public speaker, for I know for a lot of people that the compensate the doing
They overcompensate. That's
yeah.
it's a good point. A lot of people who um are seen as overachievers, people who are just really good at like one thing or like two thing, or people who are like straight A students. They're always trying to outdo themselves and improve themselves. Usually tend to have some sort of sense of, like you said, inadequacy. They don't feel like they're worthy. They feel like they're lacking, and they need to keep proving themselves, in whatever it is that they're
Mm-mm-mm.
doing. That's It's an interesting thing that I think a lot of people do, and I think a lot of people can relate to that sense. Uh, I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
think a little bit of this can be helpful. It can be in our advantage talking about being musician. If it is too much, maybe it becomes a little bit unfunction, not very functional. It can work. It can works against you. I want to say.
Mm.
Anyway, yeah, definitely. In music, I have zero problem to push my out of my comfort zone. In
I can.
life, is more difficult for me because I tend to be more introverted, and it's more difficult to go outside my comfort zone. I need to force me to remember when in music is something natural. But I need to say that in my case, I exaggerate forcing myself out of the comfort zone in a sense that the risk is that you start to not enjoying anymore what you are doing, but it always becomes a pain. And then it's important to find the right balance. I think Alan Oswald, Alan Oswald, he has this problem at the maximum level because he was always pushing outside comfort zone, and he were I remember stories about him crying after a show because he didn't play well for his point of view.
Yeah.
I think if you reach that level, it becomes bad for you.
I agree. You should. I believe it is healthy for an individual to always want to be better themselves, become the best version of themselves, and always
Yeah,
strive to just be better and give back to the world. But if it gets to a point where like you're you trying to be better turns into a sense of anxiety, or like you're just starting to feel unworthy, that is completely unhealthy.
yeah, yeah. Definitely, I have some of these, more or less. It depends, but definitely in the recent years, also because of the pandemic, I started to study a lot, but in a way that becomes a procrastination, you
Mm,
know,
I
of
gotcha.
other stuff. Maybe I must spend much more time around pushing my musical career. It must be more bad, but I spend all the time studying strict counterpoint, you know, strict harmony, stuff that I use for my music, but it requires a lot of time and energy that
Mm,
I must dedicate to other stuff. Then sometimes I have this feeling of that fights against each other,
yeah.
and that
There's
creates anxiety. It creates anxiety.
Yeah, it's not easy being like a professional musician, because you know unless you're actually in a position where you are making a living through music. Most people think it's just, oh, I'm going to sit there and like play my instrument, or I'm going to learn music. A lot of people don't realize that if you're doing it professionally, you're running a small business, so you literally have to work from the time you wake up till the time you go to bed. And it's not just the art, it's a lot of business stuff. There's like, oh, I have to figure out how to market myself. I have to figure out how to like network within my industry. I have to figure out how to register my business properly. Do I want to do an LLC? Do I want to do an S corp? Do I want to travel? Do I want to? What are my rates? You have to do all like the things that like a contractor who's building a house is going to do, but you're doing it for music. Or if you're an artist, you're a graphic artist. There's a lot of hats that you have to wear. So I totally 100% understand that sense of stress and just like, oh, let me just like procrastinate with the music a little bit and just I'll get to the marketing later.
Look, I'm surrounded by counterpoint books. Here. Look, I can go completely. I'm surrounded. I cover some of them, and then I procrastinate with that because with guitar I get boring. With guitar I play from a long time, and I practice every day, but it's a little bit of a comfort zone, guitar. Then I need to go. In music I need to push myself outside. Otherwise, what I'm playing and what I'm doing, for instance, composing, lose meaning completely. There is a lot of musicians that they are lucky, I think, to me, that they learn something. For all their career, they only play that stuff. And to me, I am not able to do that. I know it's much healthier to do that. I think B.B. King, for instance. B.B. King plays the same things in all his career at the top of what you can do in blues. But he never, and he thought, do one thing. He was thinking like a businessman. Focus on one thing and do that well. Otherwise, you can be lost and do nothing, But unfortunately, I really like to push outside my comfort zone, and that creates stress. The other side, from one aspect, is very exciting,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think,
and I
was gonna say, I think that is your style. You as an artist are just always trying to push yourself to the edge. Like, what is it that you can do with the guitar, not just technically, but like compositionally? What are the limits? How can I bend the limits? And that right there is like a very unique it's a very unique perspective, because like you said, most people are just like, oh, this is how I do the thing. I'm going to stick to my comfort zone. Whereas you're like, this is the thing. How can I make the thing fit me? So that's a very unique perspective. And I think just knowing you for like the little that I do, I think you apply that to like how you live your life. Because you're like, I want to do music. How do I do music my way? How do I do music where I want to do it? You've been all over the place. You've traveled all over the place. You've taught, in multiple ways. So I think it's a very cool like perspective that you have on music that I think shines through in just like your life and your daily practices.
Cool. Thank you for your analysis.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, Daniela, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. I really very much appreciate you sharing, like your perspective and like what it was like for you to like come over here to a different country, and then how like that's related to your art.
Thank you so much. It was my first time I'm talking about this concept, and thank you so much for your invitation, and keep doing this podcast that I think is great.
Oh,
and thank you for having me, and badass, man.
Well, thank you very much, and I am very honored that you have decided to open up with me on the podcast for the first time. I truly believe that the more that we as a society feel comfortable about opening up about our struggles and what it is that we're going through, that the more that we can help others realize that they are not alone and that everyone has the inner strength to face whatever life puts across their path. So thank you again for taking the time to
Definitely.
chat. And thank you to anyone that's watched this episode or listened to this episode. If anyone watching or listening finds that they are struggling with their mental health, please do not be afraid to reach out to your friends, family, or a mental health professional. I'll place a link in the description of this video that will have some information and connections to further resources. And until next time, remember, you always have the strength to conquer your battlefield.